We're studying 1 Samuel, and if you would, anybody, we study through, I'm supposed to say this. We study through books of the Bible here at the Village Chapel. We have extra copies. If you don't have one with you and you'd like one to follow along, raise your hand real high, and somebody will be glad to drop one off. We got plenty over here on this side as well that we need, and somebody will take, Amy, maybe over this way too. Thank you so much. 4 or 5 over that way. Thank you so much. Just make sure everybody gets one. Keep your hand up real high until somebody comes. That's great. A little background as we're waiting for those to be passed around, you to find your place. We'll be in 1 Samuel chapters 5 and 6. Last week, we took chapter 4, and I kind of told you that this is sort of a triptych of chapters. The lens has moved from Hannah, from Eli, from Samuel, from speaking and sort of focusing on the stories of those people. But now it's moved to, in 4, 5, and 6, these 3 chapters, it seems to be about the Ark of God. 12 times the Ark is mentioned in chapter 4. 12 times the Ark is mentioned in chapter 5. 10 times the Ark is mentioned in chapter 6. And so I'm going to go ahead and do it again because I love doing this. But one of my very favorite Bible commentators, Dale Ralph Davis, said, this is a bit of archaeology that we're in, right? So don't throw food. Hang in there. I love those kinds of thoughts. I love that the attention span is now, let's go over here, because I'm Mr. Short Attention Span guy. I love changes of scene. The Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, mentioned so many times. What's that about? And some of us in the room here are watching. All you know of the Ark of the Covenant or Ark of God is what you learned in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So what is it? And so we learned in the last chapter that as the Israelites went into battle with the Philistines, who would be their perennial enemies and sort of over and over again, they didn't consult God. They didn't pray with God about this particular battle. And they go into this battle. They get routed once, chapter 4 tells us. 3,000 of them die. They run back to their tents, and somebody says, we should do something religious. And so somebody goes and sends for the ark, and they bring it from Shiloh, and then they bring the ark thinking, good, it's the genie in the bottle God. It's the talisman. We just treat it the right way. It'll do the magic we want it to do. And they go into battle again. This time they lose 30,000, or the word thousand in Hebrew could mean military units, 30 military units. So it could be either one. But they're routed again in a much bigger way this time. And now the ark is taken by the Philistines. And so now that's kind of where we're stepping in today. It seems like from the Israelites' standpoint, it seems like it's over. What we thought was all about Yahweh, our God, his presence among us because that box is with us. They put their faith in the box. So when the box got stolen, that left their faith in rubbles, in shambles. Has something like that ever happened to you, where your faith got completely crushed because God didn't behave the way you thought God would behave? Or you did something religious thinking you were earning God points, and surely God's going to do X, Y, Z for you then, and he didn't, and now you find your faith in just sort of a pile of rubble. Or like the Philistines, I bet the Philistines had a party that night when they went back to their camp. They have the box. They have the ark, that golden ark, about 4 feet by about 3 feet by 3 feet, roughly. And inside of it, the stone tablets, the jar of manna, the Aaron's rod that had budded. I mean, this is like a treasure. And the Philistines think, not only have we routed Israel, but we've got the ark. And you're going to see that they worshiped one of their gods, is a little god named Dagon, a little false god, little god they made up. And to them, having the ark means that they beat up Yahweh. They won against Yahweh. And we'll see, they did not defeat Yahweh. They won the battle against the Israelites, but they did not win against Yahweh. Yahweh is still at work when we think it's all over and all done. There's no hope. The Israelites are despairing. There's all hope. The Philistines are dancing. They're tossing around the bottle. They're having a great time, partying really hard because they think it's all over. Watch what happens, man. 5 and 6, chapters 5 and 6, I got to tell you, I'll just be honest as we get into it here. These are some very weird goings on. And that's one of the reasons I love the Old Testament, because it's got some strange stuff in it. So if you're if you like Stranger Things, and just a couple of you got that, yeah, that's good. If you like that kind of stuff, man, watch this, okay? The Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Okay, so give me my map if you're up there. Can you give me my map? Thank you so much. Here's the map. I just want you to see what's going on here. Here's the little green dot. See it up top there? Okay, now follow it down. Here we go. Okay, so what we have here is Philistia. This is the area that the really 5 major cities that belong to the Philistines. Joppa's kind of on the end. On Tuesday, some of us are flying to the Holy Land in Israel. Tel Aviv's right in here somewhere. And Joppa, we'll be able to see that. That's a little peninsula out here. Remember Jonah? You remember Joppa, right? Peter goes there. He's hanging out with a guy named Simon the Tanner in Acts chapter 10, right? Okay, so what has happened is this battle takes place up here, Ebenezer and Aphek. Here's Shiloh. That's where the ark was. They brought it over here to where the battle was. The Philistines win the battle, and so they're going to carry it down here to Ashdod. Now, in Ashdod, there is a temple to Dagon. Dagon is the fish god, okay? Awesome, right? Yeah. And it kind of, they saw Dagon as a fertility / fish god. And some of you are going, wait a minute, I've heard of Dagon before. Where have I heard of Dagon before? We studied the book of Judges. In the book of Judges, there's a guy named Samson who actually is probably still on the ground during the time that we're actually studying right now. He's probably still alive. There's a temple to Dagon that's in Gaza, right there. And while the ark is being brought here to the temple in Ashdod, to Dagon, the other temple for Dagon is where Samson will go and lean up against those 2 pillars after his eyes are gouged out, and God will give him one more blast of energy, and he will literally tear the house down. So there's a lot going on, and some of it overlaps. I just wanted you to get a sense for what it looked like geographically. I love these chapters because to me, they at least make me think about this question: how should we think about God? How should we think about God? A lot of people don't even think about how they think about God. They just do default setting sort of, I don't know, my mom and dad were Baptists, so I guess I'm Baptist. You know. I live in the South, I think I'm a Christian, you know, or whatever. And, or I live in the North, I must be an atheist, or what, you know, whatever. That's not the case, by the way. So all of these little default setting things happen for people in all different directions. But 1 Samuel 4, 5, and 6 shout to us, think about how you think about God. He's not confined to a box, Israel, or Philistines. He's not confined to a box. Just because you got the box doesn't mean you won the battle or the war. So here, they take it down there, and they've got it, and they took the ark of God, verse 2, and brought it to the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. So the ark is sitting next to the statue of Dagon. Now, put the statue up there on the screen. This is an artist's rendering of what they think Dagon may have. It's kind of the fish god. His cape, you know, his Superman cape is a fish. So he's kind of like a merman in a way. He's got eyes, but he can't see, mouth, but he can't speak, nose, but he can't smell, hands, but he can't do anything with them, and he's got feet, but he can't walk. He's also got fins, and he can't swim. So this is a statue made by human hands. This is not a God that made human hands. And people, for a long time, human beings have been making God in their own image, or in the image they prefer God to be in. We've been doing that forever. We still do it today. Especially in Western culture, where we get to have it our way in so many ways. But think about how you think about God. That's what 1 Samuel 4, 5, and 6 want to call us to. Now, I'll try not to stop as often, but you got to see what happens here. Verse 3, when the Ashdodites, those are the people who live in Ashdod, arose early the next morning, remember they put the ark next to Dagon in the temple of Dagon. Behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and they set him in his place again. Now, if your God falls down, you have the wrong God. If your God falls flat on his face, you have the wrong God. If your God falls down flat in his face, he was set beside the ark. Now he's falling before the ark. Don't miss that. This is God at night going, Dagon falls down. Dagon is not a living creature or living being of any kind. He's a statue made by human hands. Oh, and by the way, nudges him around so that he's worshiping before the Ark of Testimony. Oh, I love it. God's sense of humor is so amazing. Dagon does the first face plant in the Bible. So here is the fish god on his face before the ark, right? Here, they've been partying till 2 or 3. I mean, they really thought, we won the battle. Yahweh is vanquished. Dagon is the real God. Blah, 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 blah. Let's all go to bed. Somebody wakes up at the crack of noon. They go on down to the temple. Oh my goodness, poor little Dagon. And then let's get him back up and put him in his place. Maybe he had too much to drink or whatever. And they put him up in his place. And again, if you can put your God in his place, you got the wrong God. So they put him in his place. Verse 4. But when they arose early the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. That happened again. And this time worse, the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off in the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor all who enter Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. Do you get what happened there? Their God is kicked over by Yahweh and smashed to pieces now. Faceplant number 2, broken to pieces. The head is gone, can't think. The hands are broken off, meaning rendered powerless. And do they get it that Yahweh is the real God? No. They're now revering where the parts fell. And so they no longer step on the threshold of the temple to Dagon. They have to step over the part where Dagon's head and hands fell off. You see how we miss the point sometimes? And the Philistines are missing the point. And I think Yahweh is being very generous to keep saying, the God that you trust in is the God that you made. Therefore, he's smaller than you, less than you, not worthy to be worshiped. And I've even shown you how powerless he is. How about turning to me? And no, they don't. Instead, they revere the threshold where the parts of him, where this statue fell apart. So they don't step on them to this day, verse 5. Verse 6, the hand of the Lord. By the way, the hand of the Lord is mentioned 8 times in chapters 4, 5, and 6. The hand of the Lord. Another one of those repeated phrases. When you see them, I'm not a numerology guy at all, but when you see repeated phrases inside of a very condensed text, usually that means the author is wanting to talk about the ark 12, and 10 times in 3 chapters. Now, 8 times the hand of the Lord is on these Philistines, pressing against them. Usually the author's trying to make a point, okay? Verse 6, the hand of the Lord was heavy on the Ashdodites, and he ravaged them and smote them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territories. This is another part of, I'm telling you, this is a bizarre couple chapters here. Tumors in some of your, I think if you have a King James Bible here, it's emerods, okay? And it is, I think it is what it might kind of sound like. Watch what happens, because we'll get a little more information about those emerods in just a minute. But he smote them, he ravaged them with emerods, both Ashdod and its territory. So all the people there, he's ravaging. The Lord Yahweh is doing this. When the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, the ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is severe on us and on Dagon our God. So they sent and gathered all the lords of the Philistines to them and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? Again, their superstition mixed with faith is leading them to believe that the box is magic and it's the box that's doing stuff instead of Yahweh who's doing stuff. So we danced and partied all night long after the battle with the Israelites, but now our statue of Dagon is broken and it's been humiliated. And now we've got these emerods, we've got these tumors. This is terrible. We got to get rid of this thing. It's doing it too. Let the ark of God of Israel be brought around to Gath. Remember, that's one of the other cities up there. In other words, let's let them have it. All right, so let the ark of the Israel be brought around to Gath, and they brought the ark of God of Israel around. It came about that after they had brought it around, the hand of the Lord, once again, was against the city with great confusion, and he smote the men of the city, both young and old, catch this, so that tumors broke out on them. Some of your translations will say in secret places. I'm sorry, but I mean, some of the Bible scholars actually said these are hemorrhoids. That's what this is. It's like a horrible, horrible situation. And again, one of the times where you just go, okay, Old Testament, wow, awesome. All right, so God takes a group of people who are mocking him, a group of people who are worshiping this box that he designed. I mean, he's the one that told the children of Israel to make the ark. He designed it. He wanted it to point to him. He wanted it to contain the stone tablets, reminding them that he had spoken to them, hadn't left them in silence or alone. He wanted them to remember the jar of manna inside it because he had provided for them. He wanted them to remember that. And it had Moses' rod that had budded because he wanted them to remember that God had delivered them, spoken to them, provided for them, delivered them. The ark, a reminder of his presence. The mercy seat, a reminder of his grace and forgiveness for sins. And yet they worshiped it, thought it was a magic little talisman. The Philistines thought they had the ark, they had God right where they wanted him, you know. And so he's making this very clear, and he's making it in very bold and strange kind of ways. But these folks at Gath sent the ark of God, verse 10, to Ekron. That's another. Let's get it. The people of Ashdod don't want it. The people of Gath don't want it. Now we're going to send it to Ekron. Okay? Pick the city you don't like and send it to them. Okay, so that they can have these problems with these tumors and all of these problems, okay? And it happened that the ark of God, as it came to Ekron, the Ekronites cried out, saying, they have brought the ark of the God of Israel around to us to kill us and our people. So they sent, therefore, and gathered all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of God of Israel. Let it return to its own place, that it may not kill us and our people, for there was a deadly confusion throughout the city. The hand of God was very heavy there, and the men who did not die were smitten with tumors, emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. Now the ark of the Lord had been in the country of the Philistines for 7 months. For 7 months. City to city. You take it. No, you take it. Listen, if chapter 4, right, was the rabbit foot theology of the Israelites, this is our rabbit foot. Let's take it to battle with us and maybe we'll win because we got our magic rabbit's foot with us. This is Humpty Dumpty theology and hot potato theology. You take it. No, you take it. Whoa, whoa, you take it. You take it. That's exactly what's happening here. And it's not good theology in either case because they think it's about the box, and it's not. The Philistines called for the priests and the diviners. What do we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us how we shall send it to its place. Verse 3, they said, if you send away the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it empty. You shall surely return to him a guilt offering. Then you shall be healed, and it shall be known to you why his hand is not removed from you. Then they said, what shall be the guilt offering which we shall return to him? And they said, 5 golden tumors or emerods, and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on all of you and on your lords. You shall make likenesses of your tumors or emerods, and likenesses of your mice that ravage the land. Some Bible teachers think, or scholars think this is the bubonic plague or something like that, that pests or rats or mice would carry, and perhaps they were just all through the villages and the cities and biting people and transmitting the disease that way or the infection that way. I don't know. That's, like I say, some of this is pretty strange. But now the advice from the priests come, and it's don't send it away empty. Make some golden rats and some golden tumors. And I don't know how you do that, by the way. And then put those in a box and send it away with the golden box, okay? And now we're going to send that back to the Israelites. And we'll sort of give we'll assuage the anger. We'll sort of divert the anger somehow or another of Yahweh, who has sent these this disease onto us and who's cursed us in so many ways. You've got to appease the gods. And this is very much a pagan way of thinking about God, that the gods wake up cranky and need to be appeased. They need to, in some way, we need to work to do something to satisfy them because they're cranky. And, they're in a bad mood today. Let's just see what we can do to make, this one or that one feel better about themselves, And so they think like that, and that's what they're thinking they're going to do. One plague was on all of you and on your lords, verse 5. Make these likenesses, send it back. Perhaps he'll ease his hand from you and your gods. In other words, maybe Yahweh will leave Dagon alone and quit beating him up. Why are they worshiping Dagon? I just don't get it. And on your land. Why then do you harden your hearts? Well, that's a good question to ask, verse 6. As the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts. Oh, they've heard a little bit of Israelite history. Oh, they've heard about how Yahweh delivered the Israelites out of Egypt with 10 plagues. Yeah, they've heard that. When he had severely dealt with them, the Egyptians and Pharaoh, did they not allow the people to go, and they departed? Now, therefore, take and prepare a new cart and 2 milk cows on which there has never been a yoke, and hitch the cows to the cart and take their calves home away from them. Now, this is a little bit of, we think it's Yahweh, but we got a little test we're going to run here. We're going to fleece Yahweh, and we're going to use cows doing it, okay? This is interesting. Take the ark of the Lord, place it on the cart, put the articles of gold which you return to him as a guilt offering in a box by its side. So you got your ark, big, 4x3 kind of thing, with the poles through it and all. It's a gold-covered, beautiful thing. Then you got your box with your gold-covered tumors and your gold-covered rats, and they're in a box. And we're going to set that on a cart with 2 cows that have just had calves, all right? And then watch, if it goes up by the way of its own territory to Beth Shemesh, this would be moving into Israelite territory, then he's done us this great evil. In other words, Yahweh is the one that did all of this. But if not, then we shall know that it was not his hand that struck us. It happened to us by chance, by accident. How many times have you tried to explain away the hand of God or what God was doing? I mean, we're just so given to that, aren't we? And that's what they're trying to do here. Let's take 2 cows that have had babies, had their calves, put the calves in a pen. Then put this ark and the box of stuff, put it and send the mama cows off on their way. If they do the natural thing, they'll turn around and come back and nurse their calves. But if it's Yahweh doing a supernatural thing, they'll just keep on going right on up the road to Beth Shemesh. What's fascinating to me is that Yahweh doesn't throw lightning bolts at them for this. He actually goes, okay, you want to see a little something with the cows? Here I go, watch this. So he does. So they're making a test, they're going to guess, and Yahweh wants them to know that it's Yahweh doing this. See? That's his heart. He's not trying to hide from the Philistines. All through, I think he's been trying to say, Dagon is no God at all. How about checking me out? Now he's going to do this thing with the cows. Men did so, took 2 milk cows, hitched them to the cart, shut their calves at the home, put the ark of the Lord on the cart, the box with the golden mice, and the likenesses of their tumors. And the cows took the straight way in the direction of Beth Shemesh. They went along the highway, lowing as they went. That's such great live body detail in a 3,000-year-old story. So the cows were mooing. I love this. This is so good. Lowing as they went, and did not turn aside to the right or the left. The lords of the Philistines followed them to the border of Beth Shemesh. The people of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. You can see them in the fields. Excuse me. They raised their eyes and they saw the ark, and they were glad to see it. They would have recognized the ark, Israelis. The ark came into the field of Joshua the Beth Shemesh. It stood there where there was a large stone. They, meaning Joshua and his family, his workers in his field, split the wood of the cart, offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord, and the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the box that was with it, with the tumors and the stuff, and put them on the large stone. So they're kind of mixing Philistine superstition with Jewish sacrificial practice here. Again, doing it their own way instead of the way Yahweh had prescribed, right? So they take those little gold things and put them in there, and they got them on the stone, and they split the wood and put the cows up there as well as a burnt offering to the Lord. Levites took down the ark of the Lord, the box that was with it, in which were the articles of gold, put them on the large stone. The men of Beth-Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrifice that day to the Lord. Verse 16, when the 5 lords of the Philistines saw it, they returned to Ekron that day. These are the golden tumors which the Philistines returned for a guilt offering to the Lord. One for Ashdod, one for Gaza, one for Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. The golden mice, according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines, belonging to the 5 lords, both of fortified cities and the country villages. The large stone on which they set the ark of the Lord, and pay attention, is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua the Beth-Shemite. This is what day? The day of the writing of this book. Don't know who wrote it, not 100% sure. But whoever was writing it, that stood some time. That stone stood there for some time as a reminder, an Ebenezer, a reminder stone. And then God struck down some of the men of Beth-Shemesh because they had, notice this, verse 19, looked into the ark of the Lord. Some of the Bible commentators suggest that there was an indifference, that some of the original language can imply that they had trivialized with their golden tumors and their golden mice mixed in with the offering, the guilt offering of the cows, that they had in some way completely trivialized, become, and mixed superstition and unbelief in with their faith. And this is, honestly, this is difficult to explain what God's doing here. But part of it is explained, I think, by the questions that are going to be asked. But it says here that the Lord struck down some of the men of Beth-Shemesh because because they had looked into the ark. He struck down of all the people, and some of your translations will say 70 men. Some of your translations, though, are going to say 50,070. Which is it? I honestly don't know. I've read multiple scholars on this, and I'm not convinced by anybody in particular that they've got it figured out. But the severity of God here is on full display. And it's real. And if I bristle at that, usually I've looked back over my life anyway at 61, and I find that I've lost sight of the fear of the Lord, usually when I'm bristling at the severity of God. I have moved into a place where I like the cosmic concierge God. I like the God that does my bidding, and I like the God that I can create. But I don't so much like the God that actually loves love, hates hate, wants me to behave in one way and not in another, expects me to honor him, even in my suffering, even in every way. I prefer the God that does my bidding, just like the Philistines, just like the Israelites. I want the golden box. I don't want the God of the box. And so here they are, perhaps doing that same kind of thing, mixing it all up like that. And the Lord struck the people with a great slaughter. The men of Beth-Shemesh, then notice their response, and this is one of the reasons why I think that they were in some way learning a lesson. Who is able to stand before the Lord, this holy God? And to whom shall he go up from us? How do we get rid of him? Is the second question. The first question is, who can stand before this holy God? And I know the answer to that question. No one. We're all sinners. But for Jesus, I can't stand before him. I must fall. I will fall. And then they ask the question, how do we get rid of him? Just like Ashdod did, just like Gath did, just as Ashkelon. No, don't come here. Let's get him out of here, you know. And so they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, another city, saying, the Philistines have brought back the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up for yourselves. How'd you like an ark? We have a golden ark. We'd love to give it to you. You might have heard of it before. Everybody, it's a hot potato, man, and they just want to get rid of it. It's a holy hot potato, though. And they're saying, who can stand in the presence of this holy God? And the answer, my friends, today is the same as it was back then. Nobody can. Nobody can. You can't stand before him on your own. You say, I'm a good Southerner. I go to the village chapel. I tithe 2.7%. That's none of that. Even if you tithe 200%, it's not going to be enough. See, every single one of us is a sinner. We studied the book of Romans. Every single one of us is a sinner. Every single one of us needs redemption. So this is a level playing field. Every single one of us needs what only God can do, what only Yahweh himself has done for us in the personal work of Jesus Christ. And this all, to me, just foreshadows so much of what we do learn as we study the gospel itself in the New Testament. I love these chapters right here. I think this is just an amazing treatment on how we should think about God. Dagon, when you think about Dagon, his faceplant, his homage to Yahweh before the ark, all that stuff, his helplessness, when he has to be set back up, his powerlessness when his hands are, all that stuff, just over and over again, what we're being told here, and what the Philistines were being told visibly, personally, is that there's no God but Yahweh. Dagon, that statue you made with your hands, is not a God. It's less than you are. Why? Because you made it. And people, listen, today it's the same way. If you create God in your own image, or you want a designer deity, that deity will not be worthy of your worship. That deity will not be able to save you. Why? Because it's less than you are. Something greater cannot come from something lesser. And so it's important for us. Unlike Dagon, Yahweh bows to no one. Yahweh needs no one to set him back up. Yahweh doesn't need anyone to save him. Yahweh won't be tamed by anyone. Yahweh won't be mocked by anyone. And I think it's important for us to know. Eugene Peterson says the living God cannot be used, manipulated, or managed. Spiritual power is not a matter of getting our hands on the right method or technology, and I might add, or the right piece of religious furniture. Or I might even add, or going to the right church, or be in the right denomination, or get my systematic theology so tidied up and squared away. No, God's not going to be tamed like that. He can't be reduced to an impersonal power. He will not be mocked. He will not be tamed. And I think he's got it right. Point number one, the real God was not made and cannot be managed by human hands. I think that's something to take home from chapters 4, 5, and 6. The real God was not made by human hands. It's not a box. Even that God instructed to be made. God is not contained in that box. The box was a great sign pointing to Yahweh. And God is not against signs or symbols. And beautiful ones at that. He's not against that. But let's not make the mistake of worshiping the signs and the symbols. Let's allow them to be the signposts, the street signs that point us, hey, 27 miles to Nashville if you're coming from the west on I-40. It's only 27 miles, man. You're coming home. Let the religious stuff point us home. Your home, my home, it's the Lord himself. Okay? It's not the religious stuff. And it can't be managed by human hands. The real God cannot be managed by human hands either. C.S. Lewis in The Weight of Glory, I've used this quote before, but I really love it. The brooks, the music in which we thought the beauty was located, will betray us if we trust to them. It was not in them. It only comes through them. What came through them was longing. You longing? Do you find yourself chronically longing? I want you to know that that's good. He put eternity in your heart. So when you find yourself longing, it's because you're longing for more than you've got. You're longing for more than you have. You're longing for eternity. Ultimately, you may or may not know that, but that's what God has set inside of you, a restlessness that will never be satisfied until you find your rest in Him. Longing, as Lewis called it, Sehnsucht. These things, the beauty, the memory of our own past, are good images of what we really desire, but if they are mistaken for the thing itself, they turn into dumb idols, breaking the hearts of their worshipers, for they are not the thing itself. They are the scent of a flower we have not found, the echo of a tune we have not heard, news from a country we have not visited. The Weight of Glory, a great essay by C.S. Lewis. If you haven't read it, you can find it online. I hope you'll read it too. God does not need us, but God does want us. I am an unnecessary pastor. We all want to be essential. And that's a little bit of our pride in there that wants us to be essential. But a significant life is not the same thing as sort of the pride of being essential or pride of being necessary. There's really only one necessary being in existence anywhere, and that's God. Every other being is contingent upon God. If God were to cease exist, so would all the atheists that don't believe in him. If God were to cease existing, gravity would cease. Air would disappear. This physical universe would completely disintegrate into what? I don't know. But God is the one who holds it all together by the power of his word, we're told in Colossians chapter 1. So it's for his glory. He created it. He holds it together. The chair I'm sitting on, the air you're breathing, the gravity that's holding us to the planet is all of him. Scientists sometimes are looking for the grand unifying theory, the gut. It's the G-O-D. It's not a G-U-T. It's God. He's doing all of this, and he has made himself known to us in so many ways. And he's shown to these Philistines that gods made with human hands are not gods at all. Eyes can't see, mouth can't speak, feet can't walk. So here's a God who, in his amazing patience and faithful love, is condescended to not only make it clear to the Israelites over and over and over and over again, make it clear even to the Philistines, make it clear even to Pharaoh and the Egyptians through all of those plagues and all of that suffering. He tried really hard. It tells us in the book of Exodus over and over again, he's seeking to show them that he is the one true and living God, and they will have none of it. They will not believe. They refuse. They want to step over the threshold and honor the parts of Dagon instead of recognizing who Yahweh is. Don't be guilty of that same thing. Frederick Buechner says, as Christianity understands that God does not want us related to him as an invention to an inventor or pawns to a cosmic kibitzer, and that's a Yiddish term for an interfering onlooker, somebody who every now and then just goes and stirs up trouble and then withdraws and makes a joke and has some fun, but then withdraws and doesn't. No, he's really interested in revealing himself to the Philistines. And he's really interested in revealing himself to the Israelites. And he really wants us now in our day and time to know that he is the true and living God, and he's eager for us to become his sons and daughters. He wants us related to him as children are related to their father. The love of God for us is why God has continuously pursued a people he can call his own in spite of our resistance and rebellion, in spite of all of our willful arrogance and pride. This God of the Bible, Yahweh, he really, really loves us. He's come in the person of Jesus to make known to us that he is a God who speaks, just like the stones in the ark. He's a God who speaks. Jesus, the living word. Just like the manna in the ark, he is the bread of life. He is the living word. He's the provider. He's provided for us everything necessary for our salvation. Just like Aaron's rod that budded that was in the ark, Jesus is the ultimate savior of the world. He's delivered us. See? It's just beautiful when you start connecting all the dots. Thirdly and finally, God's presence, providential care, and power to save find their ultimate expression in the person and work of Jesus. John Polkinghorne is one of those scientists that I love to read. He has a book called Exploring Reality, which I'm still reading one sentence at a time, dictionary at hand. Anybody ever read a book like that? You're fascinated by it, but you keep going, what's that? So Polkinghorne, brilliant scientist, astrophysicist, I believe. At the heart of the Christian belief, he says, is the mysterious, exciting idea that the invisible God has in fact acted to make the divine nature known in the most humanly accessible way. Okay, in other words, Jesus has come, right? In the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. God has made himself known. God's not hiding. And if he has to blast into the middle of our admixture of superstition and faith and stir things up a little and do some bizarre stuff like we see him doing in the Old Testament, or like you may have actually seen him do in your own life. I know I have. I sit here a living testimony to a guy who probably has to ask way many more times than I want to, why, God, are you doing that in my life? Why did you allow this in my life? What are you up to? And he's always up to something. Because he's eager for me to be his son. He's eager for you to be his son or his daughter. You, yes, you. You who think you may have come in here with more sin pulled behind, like a barge behind you. You can't imagine that God could possibly love you. Yes, he does. Look at all the trouble that he has gone to throughout history to make himself known to rebellious, wayward, obstinate, unbelieving souls like the Israelites, the Philistines, and Jim Thomas. He really loves us that much. How will you respond to him? He really loves you so much that he'll bear public shame like he did Yahweh. They were dancing on the ark thinking they had gotten the victory over Yahweh. And then he bore the public shame in the cross of Jesus as well, just like with the ark, so that he could run a sortie into the rebel land, the rebel territory of sinners, and reconcile us to himself. Do for us what we can't do for ourselves. Reconcile us to a holy and righteous God before whom we cannot stand on our own. But because of Jesus, we are invited to come and kneel before him and receive as a gift what none of us can earn or achieve on our own: the grace, mercy, and forgiveness of a loving, holy God. Let's pray. Thanks, Lord, for coming. You didn't have to, but you did. Thank you, Jesus, for laying down your life. You didn't have to, but you did. We need you. Pray that you will open our eyes to continue to see this amazing, unfolding plan of redemption, all written all through the pages of history. Finding its fulfillment, it culminates in the person and work of Jesus, in whose name we pray and give thanks this morning. Amen.